Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with Daily Technical Update. It is the 29th of October and we'll start with S&P 500 today. That was more or less unchanged in yesterday's trading session. It's just stepping sideways, but let's see. We could see some activity today, tomorrow, when we got some of the Magnificent Seven stocks reporting earnings, so that could possibly move the market. We were unchanged here on S&P 500, still in this correction phase here with the divergence on the RSI indicating we could see maybe an even larger correction, possibly down to 5,700, but it could also take out the previous all-time highs and push higher towards 6,000. So that's it's a little bit up in the air, and pre-market market is unchanged. And also Nasdaq 100, well, it opened a little bit higher but closed basically unchanged, and still needs to take out 20,691 for to make a new all-time highs. Key support at 20,041. Dow Jones was a little bit better yesterday after the sell-off the previous day. Friday, support at 41,831. If it takes out that, well, then we could see a correction down to around 41,000. But for now, the trend is still bullish, despite the RSI showing a little bit of divergence, but it's still positive. EUROSTOXX 50 closed a little bit higher yesterday. I would still like to see it breaking above 5,000 to establish uptrend. For now, the peaks here have been falling, so lower highs, and we had this bearish engulfing here that could give it a little bit of pressure. However, it's still above 49.07, so that is positive news. You can also see the 55 moving average and the 200 moving average, they are still rising, so there's a little bit underlying bullish sentiment, and the same picture also for the RSI, pointing to higher levels. Pre-market, we are pushing a little bit higher, so let's see if it can get its mojo together and push above 5,000. It's very close to do that indeed. The DAX index also closed a little bit higher yesterday, staying above 19,400. Could resume uptrend despite the fact that the RSI is showing trend exhaustion, but I think we will push higher. We can also see pre-market here, it is pushing higher. If it takes out 19,679 and the previous all-time highs, well, then we are looking at 20,000. If we can get there, it's debatable, but it's not unlikely. The AX index still struggling a little bit, dipped again below 892. RSI is still the key here. It is still in a positive sentiment, testing the 40 threshold a couple of times. If it does close below, well, then I expect the sell-off lower to 878, possibly lower. The CAC index. Well, it's still 74.64. That is key. So not so much to report there. Swiss market tested the 12,250 yesterday. Could push up to 12,348. Here pre-market, it is actually above it. As we can see, it's pushing higher. So I think we could see that being tested, that 12,250, and we could push higher if we get RSI back above 60 threshold. But it seems like it at the moment, at least. Euro dollar stepping sideways. There is trend exhaustion. We see RSI values are rising. However, if it takes out the lows here from last week at 107.60, well, then it could push lower to 106.65, where we have much stronger support. But it looks ripe for at least a minor correction. If it moves above 108.75, well, then there's potential up to 109.30, 35 level, maybe even 109.50. Euro sterling, well, also stepping sideways at the moment. FX is a little bit boring, but that's how it is sometimes. So 883 still the key area, 83.10. Another break below 83, then well, we are looking at 82.30, possibly lower. And if we are looking at the weekly chart, we can see what's actually going on. Then we are back to these levels here. But for now, it is still holding on. And cable, sterling dollar, while also stepping sideways the past few days. We need a trigger. If it breaks below 129, when we're looking at 128, where we have the 200 moving average giving some support. RSI bearish, negative sentiment indicating we could see that scenario to play out. For cable to establish a bullish trend, it needs to close above 131. Dollar yen, a little bit of setback after being rejected at 154. There's still potential up to 155 and a change, 155.20, 155.47, which is the 161.8 projection of this corrective phase here. However, we can see that now the RSI is starting to indicate some divergence. We can see the values are declining. That could indicate a trend exhaustion, but the trend is your friend. So for now, there is still potential up to these 155 levels right there. If it moves back below 151.80, well, then the bullish trend could be over, especially if it breaks below this lower rising trend line. That could be a sign of at least a correction or a trend reversal. But I need some signals for that, and currently it's still in bullish mode. Also, euro-yen pushing higher. No divergence on the RSI, supporting higher levels towards 168. Let's see if we can get there, but we are above the cloud. We are above all moving averages, despite the fact that 100 moving is declining. But we are in a bullish trend. There should be a potential up to there. If it moves back and close back below 164, well, that picture could very well be demolished, and the trend could be reversed. The Aussie yen, well, after being rejected at 101.75, testing this lower falling trend line here in this little triangle-like pattern. It really needs to break above 101.75 for further upside potential, and it seems to be really struggling. If it moves back below 99.40, well, then we are looking at 98 and possibly lower levels. But if it can break above this 101.75, well, then there is definitely most likely higher levels in sight. Sterling yen, very close to the 199.50 resistance here, or 48 to be more exact. Yesterday, bullish trend, no divergence, indicating likely higher highs, and I think it could push to the around the 202 level, which is the 61.8 of this entire downtrend here. That should be a correction phase, and then we can also see it's not a perfect double bottom, but it gives potential up to around 202. If it moves back below 196, well, the bullish trend could be over and reversed. Aussie dollar pushing lower, now testing the 65 and 65 support. We talked about it yesterday. That was a likely possibility. RSI negative sentiment indicating likely lower levels on Aussie dollar, and it could push to the 65, 64, 70 level, which is this support area around here where market turned around. So that should be in the cards. However, of course, there can be a little bit of bouncing from current levels, but the trend is down, supported by negative sentiment on the RSI. We are likely to see lower levels. It needs to get back above 66.50. Sorry, 66.50 for a push towards 67, 67.20. On dollar Canada, pausing a little bit, formed this doji yesterday. If we get a negative candle today, maybe that could indicate a top and reversal, or at least a correction. However, there's still potential up to 139.40-50 level. But it looks a little bit stressed at the moment. But there seems to be no divergence on the RSI, indicating we could see an exhaustive push higher. Sterling Canada, testing the upper falling trend line in this triangle-like pattern there, got rejected, and I think it will break out eventually in a day or two, and that could either to be the downside towards 178.30, and if it breaks that, well, then we're looking at 177, 176.80. If it breaks out to the bullish side, well, then a new push higher towards 182. Euro Swiss not doing much, still holding up, holding itself about 93.30, and below this rising trend line here, locked in, so basically sideways trading. RSI is above 40, but it was latest below 40, meaning we're still in negative sentiment, and it needs to break above 40 for 60 for a bullish trend. And it needs to break above this falling trend line. If it takes out 93.30, then I think also it will take out 93, but there is some strong support there. But then there could be potential down to 92.50. Dollar Swiss is basically sideways, tried to push higher yesterday, got rejected, sent back below the 100 moving average. Could set back to in a correction phase, and maybe the euro dollar could help it if that is bouncing from current levels. Let's see about that. But if we start seeing pushing lower dollar Swiss here, well, then maybe a correction down to around the 38.2 retracement at 85.86. It should be minimal, where we have the 21 moving average coming up. Given minor support is not the strongest one. The strongest support is down here around 85.30. And the dollar index is pausing a little bit, looking a little bit stressed. There's still potential higher, but if it takes out 103.80, then we could see a correction. And now we'll actually add a retracement level just to have a bit of a guideline to see, okay, what if it takes out that? Then there could be a correction potential lower to around 103, 102.70, but the trend is still bullish, so it could push higher towards the 104.56, was very close to yesterday, although, but it didn't manage to get up there. But 104.85 is not unlikely either. Gold is testing all-time highs here, just a few cents just below it. We can see that. If it takes it out, well, then we are looking at the target I talked about for quite some time. It's plus 2,800 and possibly up to 2,878, which is my longer-term target, or medium-term target, I would say. If it takes out, and I'll actually draw a horizontal line just to give it a bit of guidance. It didn't get all the way down to the 38.2 retracement, but if it takes out the 27.08, the little dip there, well, then we will have this correction that could potentially take it below the lower rising trend line and down to around the 61.8 at 26.62. But for now, it seems like bids are still quite strong, coming in and giving some further upside potential. Also, silver seems to be bouncing, and there's no divergence on the RSI, indicating likely higher highs. And we are there is potential up to 35.5 level that could be seen, potential higher. And I have added the other metals that I'm covering. We have here platinum, and platinum, and I've added the weekly chart indicating, well, 1100, 1130 level. We are in a bullish trend, medium and short term. We could see platinum pushing towards those levels. And now Palladium. Palladium, we talked about it the past few days, also in a bullish trend, short term and medium term, with potential up to 1346, where there's some resistance, but could push all the way up to 1600 level, 1650. And finally, copper. Copper hasn't done much the past few days, so let's zoom in and see what's actually going on. Basically just trading sideways, being locked in here between the 55 moving average and the 21 moving average. Really needs to break below 429.35 for a push to 420, and it needs to take out that peak there at 445.70 for a push higher towards 460 and 470.80 level. crude oil, and we're going to do a little bit more deep dive into it. Currently pushing lower, testing this falling trend line there. RSI is, as we speak, below 40 threshold. If it does close below 40, it will confirm further the downside potential. And looking at the weekly chart, which I think is important, we can see here, well, the triangle-like pattern is still in play, despite that we had this pullback up here into the triangle-like pattern. Downtrend has resumed. There's potential down to 64, even 61.80. We are in a bearish trend. There's no divergence on the RSI, which is supporting the bearish trend here, with the negative sentiment on the weekly, indicating we are likely to see lower lows on the sweet crude oil, the WTI. Brent crude oil, same picture here. Here I have actually added you can see we are in a bearish trend, lower high, lower low, lower high, and so on, pushing lower towards the 64.60 possibly. If it takes out a 69.90, that is the potential down here we could see. And if I just expand that, let's just see here. Okay, there we are. We can see where it comes from. These levels here, we are actually all the way back to here we are back to the 2023, but also back to 2021-22. On the Dutch gas, and let's just resize it a little bit there. Okay, building an uptrend here. We can see if we zoom in on the weekly chart, we can see it's not easy to see, but it is there, higher highs and higher lows, higher highs, and so on. And there is upside potential to 50 level, 55 level on the medium term. Going into the winter period, we can see here on the daily chart where it's pushing towards the 44.60 minor resistance, but the big and strong resistance up here. However, the 100 moving average on the weekly is still trying to keep it down a little bit, but we are above the cloud. We are in a bullish trend and bullish sentiment. Henry Hub natural gas, let's have a look at that too. Well, very strong move yesterday of the support area down here at 22.27. It seems to be forming here on the weekly chart, medium term, trading in this triangle-like pattern. If it breaks above the upper falling trend line, well, then there's potential higher towards 3.5, maybe even higher. Especially if it takes out that little peak here, just around $3 or 3.16 to be exact. The US 10-year Treasury yields got rejected here at the 4.29 resistance. Previous peak here back from July, just a little bit correction peak there. We could see a little bit of a setback down to maybe 4.20, but the trend is bullish. There is a slight divergence on the RSI. This value here is actually a little bit lower than this one. Let's just check that. Yeah, 73.48 and 74.20. So it's slightly falling, indicating maybe a short-term, very short-term trend exhaustion. We could see a little bit of a setback to test the 200 moving average there again. The 2-year US Treasury pushing higher, no divergence on the RSI, so still in a bullish mode, above the 100 moving average, and could push towards 4.28. There's no strong resistance until up in this area here, but relax, I don't think we'll get there anytime soon, but we could maybe later. If it moves back below 4.06, well, and even back below 4%, well, then we could see a further setback towards 3.90, but I think it's debatable. We could see a test at this support here, 4.06. The EuroBund future, on the other hand, had a fairly good day yesterday. Buyers came back in, lifting it back above the 132.73. So for now, it still hasn't closed below. It was below yesterday, but didn't close below. So buyers did throw a little lifeline here yesterday. But as you can see, trend is down, lower lows and lower highs. And could see another push lower, supported by the negative sentiment on the RSI. But for now, it's holding on, and that's what you should keep a focus on. Could bounce further if if it gets back above 133.50, but we can see the 55 moving average turning around there, and we are in a bearish trend, so there is a downside pressure. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day.